Empire.
Hello and welcome to another live stream edition of the John Keim Report. Do me a favor, subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. And if you're watching on YouTube later, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, leave some comments. You can find us there as part of Empire Media, AMPIRE. Always much appreciated when you tune in. And don't forget, you can read my work on ESPN.com. Kind of have a big story up now, Bram Weinstein, about the Commanders trading for Marshon Lattimore. I'm going to have a reaction piece that comes out in the morning. Go there. Bram, how about we start with Marshon Lattimore? Is there anything else to talk about tonight?
No. So you laughed at me a few weeks ago. That's what I'm going to say to you. You laughed at me when I told you they need to go get a corner to take a run because they have a team that can win.
I didn't disagree that they should go get somebody.
All of it.
But I didn't disagree they should get somebody. The thing is, like, even when we talked, my point on anything like this was always, if you're going to do it, it has to be somebody that figures into your future. And that's what Lattimore does. So, but before we get into that, I do have Matthew Paris coming on here. Used to cover the Commanders for the Washington Times, now covers the Saints for the New Orleans Times-Picayune. Going to give us some insight into who the Commanders picked up today. So, Matthew Paris, how are you, my man?
How's it going?
It's
still
going
wearing
around.
the same brand of shirt. That never changes.
You're a popular man tonight, Matt. You're making the old rounds. So, first of all, good to see you. I know you got only a few minutes, but we just want to get a little bit of a sense of Marshon Lattimore. What is Washington getting in Lattimore?
Yeah, you and I were talking about this kind of offline, but I think he's a really strong corner still. Even though he's dealt with some injuries, he'll really allow Washington to kind of switch up their coverages, maybe play more of the man style that they want to do there under Dan Quinn. So still really effective. He's dealt with some injuries this year, but when he's been available, he's been a very good player. And crucially, they don't really opposing quarterbacks don't target him. You know, you can really kind of leave that side of the field alone.
What's the deal with his injury? He's got the hamstring. How bad is it? What do is this something that could miraculously be cured coming up here?
Yeah, well, I don't think Washington would give up all that they did without feeling confident about where Lattimore stood. But the way that Dennis Allen described it before he was fired was that, in against the Broncos on Thursday Night Football, Lattimore hurt his hamstring, was able to go the following week against the Chargers, but then aggravated it again. So it was the same leg, caused him to miss the Carolina game. He also had a hamstring injury in week 1 that lingered into week 2, missed that game against the Cowboys. So he has had some soft tissue injuries this year. He also missed training camp with a hip flexor, or most of training camp. So he's been hurt, and that's not even to say the 22 and 23 seasons where he missed half of them.
So why were they willing to give him up? I know they got a return for him, but why were they willing to give him up?
Yeah, he was their real one trade asset. Oh, that's kind of, I think, the biggest thing is that, if they are going to rebuild now, he was the player that was going to fetch a good return. But beyond that, I think the relationship had soured. They made a move last season to rework his contract that kind of sent a signal to other teams around the league that he was available. And he was subject to trade rumors all off season. That didn't materialize. But they had to have a conversation with him to kind of determine, all right, are you in or not? Lattimore said in OTAs that they had worked through some issues. So I just don't know how good of a place Lattimore and the Saints were in. And I think as things went south, they became more open to moving on.
Why did they do the contract shift on him? What was that about?
So it is complicated. Basically, I'd have to go back and look at what the actual clause is, but it made it effectively like easier for the Saints to absorb the money on moving him, because there's something with the way that his dead money would have been that would have made it impossible to trade, and it kind of rearranged things. I'd have to go pull it back up, but that was the main thing, is it made it more palatable for him to be traded, I think.
So okay, so but, like, to be fair too, and like, and you know this now, covering the Saints,
Yeah.
their front office has been aggressive. They kick the can down the road on the cap a lot. They have a lot of big contracts. They constantly move money around. So this may have been more about finances and less about how they truly feel about him, or was it a little bit of both?
No, it was a little bit of both, because it was the timing of it. They did it before the season was over,
Yeah.
whereas they start restructuring guys February, March, in time to be in compliance for the salary caps. So I do think it was a little bit of a message, but they also did have to address their cap somehow, and he was part of that.
Matt, how did it affect Lattimore? Did it doesn't sound like it affected him on the field in terms of his play, but did it affect him overall?
Yeah, I don't know. He didn't really expand on it when we asked him. The Saints also weren't really forthcoming on why they even did that. He said, Mickey Loomis, I think, said that there was a reason they did it, but he didn't expand on it. So they've been pretty tight-lipped about it, and whether that actually bothered him or not. But I mean, you guys will talk to him. My sense is that I don't think, not that he was unhappy, but he's going from a 2-7 team to a 7-2 team. So I'm sure there's part of him that welcomes this change.
And that's what I was wondering too. Just the situation down there, they're losing. It didn't, maybe it's soured on both sides. Did it creep into anything at all, or how did he handle all that?
Yeah, it's he's very reclusive. He's not like a media guy, so we couldn't really talk to him a whole lot. But he is well respected by the corners and in the secondary room. He's not like a captain or anything, but they had a younger cornerback room with Paulson Adebo, Alante Taylor. They drafted Kool-Aid McKinstry. That was the other thing, is why Lattimore was in so many trade rumors, is that they drafted a corner in the second round.
Yeah.
Paulson Adebo is also in a contract year, so maybe it was insurance for him, but there were just a lot of signs there.
And how much did that defense kind of center around, you brought up his man-to-man skills. How much of what they do, was it partly because of what he can do as a corner?
Yes, but also that was Dennis Allen's preferred style of corner. They drafted Alante Taylor's very good at that. Paulson Adebo is maybe too good at that because he gets a lot of pass interference penalties. They're just a very hands-on, aggressive team, and they like to play a lot of man.
In terms of you saw the drop, you didn't see any drop off in play this year.
Well, covering the Commanders, based on it's not like I've deep in his film from his prime, but based on other people, based on the beat and stuff, it does seem like he was playing at a really high level. And another thing with Lattimore is that he gets up for the best receivers, and the Tampa game was a mess for New Orleans defensively. They let up a lot. They were just so many big runs. They had a bunch of yardage, but him against Mike Evans, which has been the matchup, that's the NFC South version of Odell Beckham and Josh Norman. Well, that's more of a modern thing. Is he was still really good against Mike Evans and kind of rises up to those challenges.
It's funny you say that, because I did talk to a former coach there who kind of said the same thing, loves the challenges, but sometimes would he relax a little bit against some of the lesser receivers? Did you see that?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it wasn't as noticeable, but I think in the Bears game last year, I know DJ Moore is a very good receiver, but it was also Tyson Bagent filling in for Justin Fields. It didn't seem like he was as sharp as some of the other games I had seen.
And how much do you think just coming to a new place can help him?
I think as long as it'll be interesting to see what the fit is, but based on everything that you guys are reporting, the locker room vibe and everything, he's entering a happy place.
Matt, you you left. This place is a little bit different from when you were here last time, Matt. I will say that.
God. Well, yeah. At least I'm used to covering a bad team. Put it that way.
What is it like? I mean, it's got to be kind of brutal for them right now.
Yeah, I mean, at least there's been stuff to write about. This week I've been very busy. They were actually kind of interesting. Like they started off 2-0. They looked much better than people thought they were going to be, and then it's kind of crashed out here. And there's been so many injuries. There's just been some things have kind of there's something new every week, but it's also the same. It's been a lot, but I don't know. I kind of enjoy the chaos sometimes.
Well, you know how to cover chaos. Matt, the last question, I think, from Bram and I, where can we get a room in February?
Well, the Paris household is always welcome here.
Matt, it was great to see you. Thanks for coming on and just filling us in on a guy that these guys are going to really, I think, can really help this defense. So thanks a lot, Matt.
I appreciate it. I'm sure you're looking forward to talking to him about Ohio State. So
he went to Ohio State, huh?
He did. Okay.
Awesome. Right. Thanks, Matt.
Appreciate it.
See you, Matt.
All right, Bram. So I don't even know where to begin.
Where were we? I want to go back to where I was when I was getting on you for a month ago when you were laughing at me when I said this team has something special about it and we need to take advantage of it.
I didn't disagree with that. The reason I laughed at you was the flat out exuberance that you showed, which was fun. But
validated, hasn't it been?
I said this, like what I always said, even at the time, if you're going to give up a certain pick, it can't be for a rental. It has to be for somebody who factors in the future, and those guys can be hard to find. I think with Marshon Lattimore, you've got a guy that that's not from me, Bram. I swear. But then in Lattimore, you've got a guy that is under contract for the next 2 years, playing at a high level, fits what they want, is physical, and if for some reason they determine the fit isn't there, you are out 2 draft picks, 2 good picks. I don't think you're going to trade those picks if you feel the fit isn't going to be good. So yeah. I think this is the right move. Now the injuries would be a concern. What's the availability? Yeah. However, Bram, playing in this division, look at the receivers that they need to cover him. The trickle-down effect from a healthy, productive Lattimore is tremendous.
Yeah. No, listen, obviously you need to look no further than the last game to see that this team was masking its deficiencies and every roster has holes. This is not, is subject to them. Every roster has some kind of hole on it. The corner position was one that they needed to upgrade. And I think we all recognized that it was going to happen in the offseason no matter what. And I even think that this doesn't change the fact that I think that they could draft another corner next year, maybe go after another corner in free agency again. I think it's just a weak position group. So I would say this, if they were going to make a run with this team, they had to give up a real actual asset. And they did. I'll let you guys try to figure out what the compensation was, because it does feel like that they went to a length that probably other teams weren't willing to go. And that's why they got him. That said, go look at what I meant. I'm sorry. I'm circling around. Go watch the Giants game and go see that they went out of their way to play back so that the Giants would run the ball more, right? Because they were concerned that they were going to get hit by big plays by Daniel Jones and Malik Neighbors. But Daniel Jones, they were legitimately concerned with that. And they thought their best path to victory is to actually play back and demand that they run the ball. And the Giants complied to the tune of holding the ball for 12 minutes, 30 seconds in the first quarter. And if it wasn't for a turnover, maybe that game is different in the first half. But this was an admission, in my point of view, that they knew that this is one of the weaker groups. And if they really want to try to really take advantage of this season, and I've said this to you a million times over the last few weeks, these things, nothing's guaranteed. I do feel like it's the beginning. I feel really good about what the future is, but it doesn't mean they're going to be 7-2 next year. Like they're
No.
7-2 right now. This is, it's all in front of them. Everything's on the table. Look at the NFC. Look at the NFC East. It's all like Dak's not even going to play in the game that they're playing against Dallas in a few weeks. Like everything's on the table for them this year. And I'm so glad that they recognized it and said, you know what? Maybe it wasn't exactly what we thought it would be, but because we're here, we're going to go for it. And I honestly appreciate that. And I'm so excited that they did it.
Yeah. And I think it's a good move. I like my point is it's not just about this year. That's what I think is the benefit here. If you were just doing something this year, you could have gotten you're giving up a rental for something for a rental. This is a good move for this year, but also next year and the year after, provided that he's healthy and he's playing the same way. I don't see any reason why the play would drop off. To me, it would just be about health. But that's why I like this move, is because of what it means for now and the future. I think that was always the key. If you're going to give up a couple higher picks, and like we know that Adam Peters likes his draft picks,
Yeah.
but here's the thing, Bram, there's a couple things. They still have 7 draft picks. They still have a lot of cap room. They can carry over unused cap room from this year. They could also, if they want to create more, they can release John Allen. Now they're going to have a lot of guys to sign because they sign a lot of guys to 1-year deals, only 30 guys on a contract. But then the trickle down on the field is you now bump Benjamin St-Juste back to where he's better suited, which is a number 2 corner. Then you're putting Mike Sainristil inside where he's best suited, where they like him. And so there's that trickle down. You can run different pressure packages because you have a guy who's going to do something against the top receivers. It's just, there's a massive trickle down effect that I think is really good that you would not have gotten from there aren't many corners to be available that I don't think would have given you what he can when he's healthy.
I want to ask you this because I was thinking about this today after they got him. And, the assumption is obviously he's one of the outside corners now and Sainristil can move back inside. Is that definitively going to happen? Like, are you sure about that? Because I want to ask Quinn and Witt about this because, like, I know that they long-term see Sainristil as a slot corner. This does give him the opportunity to do that, but he is playing well outside, and they haven't been unhappy with the play of Igbenogany. So I don't know, and I'm just saying this because I'm just asking because I don't know. I don't know that they're definitively moving Sainristil back inside after this, and I think it's an interesting question for Quinn and Witt later this week for sure.
And we'll talk to them later we'll talk to Quinn tomorrow and Adam Peters tomorrow. But here's the thing: like they have been consistent in saying that Sainristil's best spot is inside. So,
100%.
But to your point though, Bram, and I think it's a valid point. What if you're playing a team where maybe Sainristil matches better up if it's just 2 corners? Maybe he matches up because it's a matchup than St-Juste may have. So you can flip around and maybe you go then, but then St-Juste doesn't come into the slot, but he comes to 3rd corner. So you can do things like that based on the matchup if you want to, but then if you go to 3 corner, I would expect Sainristil to go inside. I still think that would be more of your thing, but it does give you some options. I think that's a good point because like, what if you're facing, a smaller, quicker receiver? Is that really what St-Juste would match up best against? Well, no, but we also know that Dan Quinn has typically favored the bigger corners outside. This gives them 2 guys now with some good size, and Lattimore is physical. So like that also helps, but it allows you to do some different things defensively. And so I think this is, and again, look at the division, AJ Brown, and I don't know we don't know yet about Lattimore's health. Like we can joke that it's going to get healthy for this week. I don't know that. Hamstrings are tricky. We know that. So I don't know how long it's going to be for him, but the division, AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, CeeDee Lamb, Malik Neighbors, like that's why you had to get a corner. And if you like this guy could you get a better guy in the offseason? I think it would be hard to find a guy like this in the draft and or free agency without spending an exorbitant amount. So, and I'm like, to your point, I would still go look for a corner in the offseason, get another one.
100%.
No depth.
They're just having this conversation. Just think about what we're saying here. It only reinforces what I felt all along, that they need 2 corners, that it was going to have to be addressed, potentially both in free agency, potentially one in the draft. Like it was screaming as things were going along that their 1st round pick would be used on a top tier corner. Like it's just screaming that it's going to be such a need for them as they head into the draft. But now that they've done this, so one way or the other, they're going to have to address this because of the season they're having. Why not address it now? And I mean, like, and so I love it. I do want to know what his health is, because 2 games, 4 days, if he's incapable of playing on Sunday, I have a hard time buying he's playing on Thursday. So, like, when is he available to them? But that said, I don't think they do this, without some level of assurance that he's going to be okay sooner rather than later. He's going to be out on the field. And we're gearing up for a stretch run where this team just signaled to the rest of the league, y'all may not believe what you see right now, but we do. We know what we have. And I can't wait, because we're in it to win it now. Like, first time, long time. We're not talking about next year. It's right now. It is all on the table for this team.
Right. And here the other thing is, someone else is bringing up the best players in the field, Igbenogany, Marshon Lattimore. Well, those guys weren't covering the caliber of receivers that St. Juice typically was. So that's something to keep in mind here, that he was being put and asked to do things that he wasn't really able to do, but those guys weren't, right? And so you can't assume that those are the best corners. I do think this gives you, and we know that St. Juice, we know who he is, exactly who he is. But I think it does give you the options. And, the other part of this is too, again, the pressure packages, Bram. Like, I like the way that group is starting to get after the quarterback. And there were a number of times, Bram, where you see like maybe the pressure just about to get there, but because guys are getting open a little bit early, that you can't get home. So this should give guys like Johnny Newton a little bit more help to get home. Dante Fowler, like we've seen that. Those guys are getting in there. And so that's why I say the trickle down from getting a top corner is tremendous.
Yeah, the Fowler one's really interesting. Like, cause we played against that, him in Dallas for the last couple of years, and when they signed him, I just thought of him as just kind of a situational player, because that's how he'd kind of been used. Like, he wasn't really a full-time defensive end for them, but that's partially because they had Dorrance Armstrong and Micah Parsons on their team, and they didn't necessarily need him to be used that way. So I underestimated what his role would be. I thought it would be fine and disruptive, but on a more limited basis than it's been, just because of recent history. But given a more prominent role, look what's happening out there. I mean, there are so many literal incredible stories happening on this team all at the same time. It's like they made a lot of little bets and they're cashing in all of them. It's the all-time parlay. Like, this is unbelievable, all the things that they've done, and they're all seemingly working out. And if this one hits, and hopefully it does, it could be the difference between winning a division and maybe more.
Listen, you know what it also is, Bram? The sporting gods rewarding this fan base for the past 24 plus years. To me, that's what part of this is, that it's about time something happened for the fan base, that it actually was a positive thing all season. So, but I mean, here's the other thing, Bram. What do you think this does for the guys in the locker room? What message is sent to them? I mean, that's
I think it tells them exactly what we're talking about here, that like, you have shown us you've bought into what we're doing. You guys have played at a level that's, elite, especially on the offensive side of the ball. The defense, I cited this to you last week. I couldn't believe this number. After week 3, they were 31st in pass defense. And after week 8, they're 7th. So they're improving on that side of the ball. But we can all recognize that it was going to be a hindrance to going far if they didn't get some players to help them on that side of the ball. And they're just basically telling the locker room, we think we can win right now. We don't care what history suggests about this. We don't care that this would be unprecedented. I said this a few weeks ago. They make movies out of stuff like this. And so this is my feeling, and it's been for a month running now. I believe what I see. I know what I see. This has a chance to do something really, really, really special. So, and I know they know this, and that's why they did this today, because they know it too. That's what the signal is. They know it.
But it's funny, Bram, because I was talking to somebody in, kind of high up the other day before the game, and they're like, they know they still need work, but this is part of the work, was getting this. Like, they knew, like, the roster still has work to do. Like there's a lot of work that remains to get not just to build a good team, but to build a sustainable team, right? Well, that's also part of the offseason. And so, but they attack their biggest weakness, and I know internally they do not feel like they mortgage the future. Even though you gave them a third and a fourth, you still have the third you got from Philly, which is going to be a high third because it's coming from Miami. And, so they still have 7 picks, so you can still build the way you want. And by the way, when I brought up about getting the best players, I think somebody mistook what I said. Like I didn't say Lattimore wasn't better than St. Juice. I'm talking about the other ones on the roster already, not Lattimore. Lattimore clearly is. He's a 4-time Pro Bowler, for God's sake. So that was more about, St. Juice compared to Igbenogany and Samerstill in certain matchups for sure. So anyways, to be clear on that. But I do think, Bram, it does, because how many teams in the NFC would you look and say that there could be issues there? I mean, I think Detroit looks really, really good, but so do these guys. And Jaden Daniels is a big part of that. The way the line blocked the other day is a big part of that. And I do think that the way this defense had been playing in spots is also part of that too, because they're getting better. They just needed help, and they got it today.
Look, the door swung open. I mean, with Dallas, with all the injuries and the mishigas that's going on down there, and now Dak getting hurt, their season could go sideways. The Giants' season, obviously, they're 0-4 in the division. They got swept by the Commanders. They're done, in terms of being a contender for the division. 2-team race now. These 2 teams haven't played each other yet. So real opportunity is wide open. I think the Rams are going to surge personally. If you go look at their schedule from here forward, I thought that was a big win for them. So I think they're going to surge. They're one that you're used to seeing down the road. I think Detroit's the best team in the NFC personally. That's what I think. I think Tampa, even though their record is what it is a very, very formidable team. We'll see if they can get themselves in position to do so.
Better now.
Yeah, I think so. And then, with Green Bay, just Jordan Love keeps going in and out. If he could stay healthy, I think it's hard to know how good they actually are. But I think this team, if you're being really just honest and not being biased about it, like if you just go watch them play, are you telling me you don't think they can beat all those teams? Because I think they can. It doesn't mean they will, but I think they can. So we're in the discussion here.
Do you think any team wants to see number 5 in the playoffs?
No. And if this defense continues to improve, continues to get better, and gives the complementary side to where, and they're like top 10 scoring defense now, John. So like you may not love, everything you see out there, and you may see all these weaknesses, but if that's what it ends up being, if they're a top 10 scoring defense, they're a contender, period, with this quarterback and as efficient as this offense is, and the historic things they're doing on that side of the ball, and the ability. Man, the other day, they didn't have the ball. They had the ball for 2 minutes, 30 seconds of the first quarter, got a fortunate or a nice play fumble, scored a touchdown. The second quarter rolls around. They hit the gas fast on that team. They're capable of doing these types of things. We've seen this now. They've had a few slow starts, and then all of a sudden, bam, 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 greatest show in DC, whatever nickname we're going to give for it. So I'm a true believer. They've turned me. I'm a true believer. I've gone from, I can't believe this is happening, to this is a new normal, to I am so glad they did what they did today, because it only reaffirms my feeling that I'm not just overly excited about it. I know what I'm looking at. That's a contending team, and they believe it by doing what they did today.
Well, it's funny because just even up at the Meadowlands the other day, when I just thought they were going to win. And very often you go up there and you think that, and then one play happens early in the game. You're like, well, wrong again, because like, how did it always happen? But even when the Giants came back and tied it, it's like somehow they're going to win. They're just going to win because that's where they're at now. And they play very tough and consistent. And that's the thing. And like, they do little things, and you have a special quarterback having a special year. And again, like, go back, I don't know how much you were able to rewatch the game, but Johnny Newton looked really good in the second half. And that guy's going to be a problem down the stretch. He's just getting started, and he does things that I think can really make this defense good. You get pressure like that, Fowler, and you can move guys around, and then you get Lattimore shutting the guy down. It just makes a difference. And so, I do think it obviously elevates them to a different level where now you can say, okay, let's see what happens in the postseason. You got to get there still. There's still how many games? What do they play? 8 more games? Still a ways to go. Mm-hmm. But, now you look at Bram, you look at the schedule, like, Yeah, 11 games, 12 games. Yeah, can see it.
It's looking that way. I mean, look at the Saints who are selling off some of their better players. I wish we were playing them this week, but we get them in a month, so we'll just have to see what they are. The next couple of weeks are going to be tough. It's a very tough schedule. Pittsburgh at Philly in a 4-day span, and then you turn around, you play Dallas, and we've known through the years the results have been weird, but Dak's not going to play in that game, and Dallas has got a couple of tough games. They got Philly this weekend. Like, their season could slip away from them by the time that they actually get here in a couple of weeks. Like, they're playing Philly and Houston. They could very easily be 3-7 without Dak when they show up here. So they're like, let's see what kind of, mood they're in when they're playing us, if we're still streaking in the way that we're going. And then you look at the rest of the schedule, and that New Orleans game doesn't look as formidable now because of the way their season has gone. The Tennessee game doesn't feel formidable because of the way their season has gone. Dallas at the end of the season, like, if this keeps going this way, they're not going to be involved in a playoff discussion by the time we play them down there. Like, it's adding up to the door is just kicked wide open for them to get to double-digit wins, maybe 12. And if that's the case, well, then they're going to have a very, very high seed and probably.
Bram, I think I lost you there, but I agree with you. Like, if everything goes well, then they're going to get that. They can get that high seed. But again, I also think it just shows this fan base where this group is at and how they will operate when they feel like they have a chance to do something. But again, I think it's important to be mindful of the future, and I think they did a good job with that. You still have picks in the first, second, third round. You're in a good spot. I think that bodes well for now and the future. So, yeah, good move. And I think the way they're playing and other spots on defense, Jeremy Chin is playing very well the last few weeks. I think, again, Samerstill is a really good player, and he's only going to get better. And he's going to go, if they indeed put him back inside, then he's going to go back to his more natural spot. And the linebacker play has been really good. So a lot of good things to build on defensively, and we'll see how much of an impact Lattimore can make. I would expect it to be a very good one. Anyway, Bram, I know we got other stuff going on tonight, so let's wrap it up. I appreciate everybody tuning in. I'll be back on Thursday with another episode. I'll be talking to Sal Paolantonio from ESPN, and we're going to talk about the game, but we're going to talk about league stuff, including this deal from a league perspective. Anyway, thanks for joining by, everybody. Bram, thanks as always for coming on, and I'll talk to you next time.